Buonasera a tutti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And that one on the screen, One Name, One Destiny. We have a Facebook group called We Who Are Named Riccarda. There are 230 of us in Italy, not bad. This is a strange event. It's a conference, but also a show. We don't know what will happen, and neither do you. We're a bit informal, so don't expect perfection. On the contrary, I'll tell you why we are here. We're talking about happiness. We're talking about happiness and work. We're talking about happiness, laziness, and work. Around this controversial topic, project has been created that has put together a number of southern European countries, Greece, Portugal, Italy, with the objective to create a manual on work and happiness, putting them together. So these days during the festival, we're asking you questions. We're asking questions to ourselves. We're receiving answers, and some of these questions will be asked to these people today, who are very special people, so we won't get bored. On happiness, I've asked myself some questions these days, and then I'll tell you why I'm here today. Each one of us is here for a reason, and each one of you as well. Today, while I was reading this book, I found a small paragraph on happiness. This is a book by Gabriele Romagnoli about his trip to Southern Korea, where he pays a service to organize his as a funeral while he's alive. This service really exists, and many companies buy for their employees the possibility to have a funeral while they're still alive. The reason why they do it is to find the sense of life. So there's a very short paragraph that I really loved. The writer meets the officer that explains the service, shows a video, and then looks at him and tells him, you never know when it's going to happen. In your case, it's over now. You think you're ready? Do you think you are? Do you think you've used for the best the time you've been given? These are rhetorical questions. No one out of 50,000 people who have been given this service has ever said yes. Never one. That time there was a slide on the wall. They interviewed 100 people, lived until 80. On average, they spent their life as follows: 23 years sleeping, 20 working, 6 eating, 5 drinking and smoking, other 5 waiting for an appointment, 4 thinking, 228 days washing face and brushing teeth, 26 days playing with children, 18 days tying the knot. And finally, 46 hours of happiness. The writing remains on, no comment, silence. A life, out of a life, 46 hours of happiness. What are we talking about? Because maybe someone may be happy while asleep or while playing with their children. What do 46 hours of happiness mean? That's what I asked myself, and I wanted to ask you too. And while I was coming here, since the topic these days is happiness, I think that you ask yourselves what happiness is. Raise your hands if you ask yourselves in these days. Have you answered yourselves as well? I would ask for 3 minutes of your time so that you make a reflection on what it is, what you have identified as happiness. What is it for you? I would like you to think about it for 1 minute. 1 minute of quiet while you think about what you consider happiness. When is it? When are we happy?
Ce l'avete? Un'idea, un pensiero?
Do you have an idea, an object, one thing, a moment? Raise your hand if you don't have any idea. Do you all have it? More or less? So another minor effort. Please tell the person sitting next to you, to your left maybe. So to your left on this side and to your right on that side. What have you thought about? If there are three of you, make it a threesome.
Bellissimo sentire queste risate, quella.
It's great to hear you laugh so much.
Ci siamo più o meno?
So do you have your answers or not? I would like to use the entire evening just to do this. It would be beautiful. However, this happiness, are we really looking for it? Because if we think about paper articles, what we see on TV, on the web, what politics decide for us, eventually I don't think we're looking for happiness. There's a speech by Kennedy on the 18th of March 1968 at the University of Kansas, 3 months before he was killed. It was Bob Kennedy, and his speech became very famous. He was the brother of John Kennedy, and he said, with too much insistence for much too long, it looks like we gave up excellence and the values of community in favor of accumulation of material assets. Our GDP exceeds $800 billion per year, but if we judge United States based on that, it includes pollution, smoking, ambulances, to remove slaughter from our highways. The GDP includes special locks for our doors, prisons for those who try to break them. It counts the TV programs that announce violence to sell toys to our children. It grows with the production of napalm missiles and warheads, and it includes armored cars for the police to fight the riots in our cities. GDP doesn't consider the health of our families, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our marriages, the intelligence of our public debate. GDP doesn't measure either our will nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion to our country. It measures everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. We talk about it, we talk about GDP, and then we talk about HGP. Bhutan has created a new index that should measure the happiness of the inhabitants. Studying for tonight, I discovered some interesting things on happiness, and I'll tell you three. For example, putting together the 1,000 research pieces, it looks like all the world population in a scale of 1 out of 10 is happy at 7. But we're not happy. Our happiness does not depend on our wealth. The feeling is that we are happier when we feel that we are in control of our life. When we have the sense of possibility, we can have opportunities. That's what makes us happy, not ownership. And this brings us to the second discovery. Do you know where happiness comes from? When talking about a topic, the best is to search for etymology. So there's Greek, there's Latin, and Sanskrit. And happiness comes from Sanskrit bu, that turns into theo. That means I produce. So happiness comes from generating, from producing, not from having, from owning. It comes from doing. And it reminds us of work, even if work comes from taking. But knowing that the word happiness comes from generating, that's new. The third piece of information on happiness is that it is clearly a function that nature believes is important for the human species. Because when we are happy, our brain does that thing that it always does when it wants us to repeat an action. It produces dopamine. Dopamine is a fantastic neurotransmitter which gives us a boost of happiness, and it's produced during unexpected happiness. It's surprise. If our brain produces something to reward us, it means that nature decided that that thing is good. So happiness has its own function in the evolution of humankind. It's necessary. It is equally true that, as biology tells us, nature plans that happiness is not constant. There's a function in the fact that we become unhappy, and psychology causes the treadmill of happiness. Happiness is a condition that we have enough of. It's linked to generate, and it comes and goes, and we have to accept that. This was just a premise. I'll tell you shortly what I do, since each one of us will tell their story. I'm a social entrepreneur. 5 years ago, after working for 15 years in large multinationals, Microsoft, Nokia in Finland, the classic big company career, 5 years ago I decided that they were proposing plan A or a plan B. Plan A was work, career, money, power. Plan B was family. As a woman, typical of a woman, so we're talking about gender as well. So if you want to create a family, you go for plan B. You earn less and you count less. After the birth of my second child 5 years ago, I went for plan C. I set up in Milan the first co-working space with a kindergarten space. So my idea of happiness was to create an alternative, a third solution. I didn't understand why we should choose between A and B. And Plan C means productive happiness. We wanted to prove with data, since we need to be productive, because it looks like productivity is the common objective. We wanted to prove that being happy made productive. We're still working on it. We believe it. That's what it is. But in the meantime, another project was set up, because happiness generates things continuously. And at the same time as Plan C, MAN was established. I have 4 children, Marta, Luca, Plan C, and MAN. MAN is the acronym of maternity as a master. Why? because once again, I didn't understand why we should choose between maternity and aware maternity and an aware job. I was sent when I was the manager for these big companies to do training courses where I had to drive simulators, sail and cook. But what I really did in my life wasn't noticed by the company I was working at. While the World Economic Forum today more than ever indicates in skills as listening, management of priorities, cooperation, cognitive agility, empathy as key competencies in the labor market for the next years, on one hand. On the other hand, we take a part of our life that is crucial to train these skills, that is our private life, our relationship with others, the complexity of having a family, the joy, the energy, the effort, the constant problem solving, creativity, and we don't see all these things. And not seeing them, we do not let ourselves use them on work. At work, with Mom, in the past 1 year and a half, I've been selling to companies a digital platform that turns the birth of a child into a master in soft skills. So it takes that experience and turns it into a skill, and companies are buying it. And I think this is quite interesting. And because and we'll talk about it with our guests. This is a time when everything is possible because all the old paradigms are not working anymore, and it's quite clear. And we have everything we need to do things differently. But there's a resistance. The dinosaur is making resistance to something that is not a revolution, and it's not even innovation, but it's the evolution towards which we are going. And in this space, I think we can start talking about happiness without putting it in conflict with anything. And when I talk to students at university, I say there's room to do different things, to do new things, to get upset, to say that the king is naked. There's a lot of room. And to start, I would like to give the floor to our first guest. That is a fantastic. Sorry, no, Helen will talk first. So let's start from her. He was looking at me and wondering, what are you talking about? I'm just going second. So let's start from Helen. I'll tell you who she is. She comes from England. She's a professor of media and communication at the University of West London, but above all, she's member of the International Feminist Collective called Laboria Cubonics. Her research ranges from technofeminism, she will talk about today, to studies on sexuality. Having said this, since this profile sounded boring, I checked her Twitter profile. And her Twitter profile says that she's a xenofeminist, and she will explain what it means. And she's a haircut enthusiast. So, Helen, I'll give you the floor.
And thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. So we've spoken a little bit about happiness so far. And that's both happiness and laziness are something that are very much on my mind, given that I was on holiday until 9:45 this morning. So this is a bit of a change of pace, suddenly to be back at work in one capacity. But what I want to primarily talk about today is the work in work and happiness. Now, when I was preparing to deliver this content, I was asked to come up with a question that I would like to ask you all. And the question that I want to start with is one that's been asked in one form or another within sort of journalism or within Anglophone critical theory quite a bit. And that question is, will robots steal your job? So I want you to start by maybe just talking to the person next to you for 3 minutes or so. Do you think a robot could steal your job? And how would you feel about that? And then we'll come back. Okay? Okay, short, I know, for such a big question. You should have, I believe you've all got cards, right? You've all got a black and yellow card, and on one side it says laziness, and on the other side it says work. Now, if you think that a robot won't steal your job, I would like you to hold up the side that says work. And if you think a robot might steal your job, I'd like you to hold up the side that says laziness, a future of automated lounging around. So let's see your cards. I see a lot of, oh, there we go. Fully automated luxury laziness, ahoy. Look at this. Okay, so a lot of you think that it's going to be very, very difficult for robots to steal your job. Interesting. Okay, so my perspective on this, so I just want to use the next 10 minutes or so to maybe give you a few things to chew over, to think about and see whether it might change your mind about whether or not your life is going to become automated or whether you will be stuck at work forever. And I want what might shape your answers to this question, will robots steal your job? Well, that partly depends on who you are, I think. The changes that automation will bring to the employment landscape depend not simply upon technical developments and transformations, but also upon a wide range of social factors. So crucially, this includes the forms of work to which one has cultural access, something that's shaped by the fusion of gender, race, class, ability, nationality, and numerous other variables that we might sometimes talk about in terms of identity. Within the next 5 years or so, we are unlikely to see the wholesale substitution of machines for human workers, as you rightly picked up on. But we may well see paid work redistributed as the character of available employment begins to change. So we were talking a little bit about the World Economic Forum a second ago. The World Economic Forum published a Future of Jobs report, and it predicts strong employment growth across the architecture, engineering, and computer and mathematical job families, a moderate decline in manufacturing and production roles, and a significant decline in office and administrative roles. And it also speculates that traditional sales jobs, such as that of the cashier, may be likely to go as a result of emerging technologies. So you're probably familiar with the automated checkouts that we see these days at the supermarket. You know, that is a job that has been taken by a machine, arguably. So whilst we can probably expect a big uptick in the need for highly skilled programmers and technicians, those responsible for creating and maintaining automated systems, these systems themselves may make other kinds of paying work less necessary. So as you may already have suspected, the redistribution of labour that this implies is likely to be highly gendered. Drawing upon survey data gathered from large global employers, the report notes that women make up low numbers in the fast-growing STEM sectors, whilst, quote, female employment is also concentrated in low-growth or declining job families, such as sales and office and administrative. indicating a possible reversal of some of the gains made in workplace gender parity over the past decade. So the study estimates that between now and 2020, male workers will face 3 jobs lost for every job gained, and women workers will face 5 jobs lost for every job gained as a result of this reorganization of paid work. In other words, there aren't sufficient new jobs to replace the old ones, and those jobs that are arriving, those new jobs that are coming in, are both highly skilled and highly gendered. If labour market transformation towards new roles within computing, technology and engineering continues to outpace the rate at which women are currently taking up these roles, then this clearly has an effect upon whose jobs are most at risk over the next 5 years. And this is assuming, of course, that the current balance, gender balance within specific job families stays the same, which may not necessarily be the case. It also notably fails to take into account the variation within gendered categories, subsuming all difference beneath a single banner of gender. One cannot really talk about women's experience of work, I think, at least not in any generalizing or unitary way, given the myriad ways in which intersecting forms of oppression, such as race, class, cis-sexism, able-bodiedness, and so on, have affected the scope of women's opportunities and their ability to enter and withdraw from the labour force. The point remains, however, that the predicted effects of the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution are unevenly distributed. As such, we should be aiming to integrate gender, class, and other forms of structural oppression more fully into our understanding of the potential effects of automation. So I want to finish by quickly addressing one of the gaps in the World Economic Forum's report. Given its attentiveness to certain issues of gender disparity, it has surprisingly little to say about care work in both its paid and unpaid forms. And this is intriguing, given that other sources tend to see professionalized care work as a growth area capable of offsetting potential job losses resulting from automation, and particularly in light of impending demographic changes, the aging population. Indeed, some perceive a potential polarization emerging between high-tech and high-touch jobs. So the management of technologies on the one hand, and the care of bodies on the other. So Paul Preciado might refer to this as the distinction between immaterial and uber-material labour. Partly, this relative silence is a result of the kinds of employers with which the study engaged. So these were large, global multinationals in 9 specific industry sectors, and on the kind of work that it considers. So wage employment jobs in the formal economy. It's also likely to stem from the fact that comparatively few public sector employers, such as local government departments, participated in the research. It's also worth noting that the organisation does touch on some kinds of reproductive labour in other forums. However, the relative absence of care still registers as quite conspicuous in a study addressing something as all-encompassing as the future of jobs. After all, as the American economist Nancy Fulbray recognised in 2001, employment in professional care services has increased steadily over time, accounting for 1/5 of the total paid labour force, and about the same as employment in the combined sectors of manufacturing, mechanical, and construction industries. The popular image of work still tends to fixate upon masculinized forms of waged labour, and we need to remind ourselves that schools, hospitals, and daycare facilities are as central to what constitutes work as the building site or the conference room or the production line. Equally, it seems unhelpful to discuss the future of jobs without also thinking about the future of work more broadly. I'm thinking particularly here about the burdens of unpaid care work, those activities associated with domestic maintenance, tending to the body, and so on, which are inextricably tied to gendered cultures of work. So tellingly, the report does briefly gesture toward unpaid domestic labour, but does so only to suggest that, quote, household work that is still primarily the responsibility of women in most societies could be further automated, leaving women to put their skill sets to better use in the formal labour market. And such comments are problematic for many reasons, not just for the vision of fully automated and miserating capitalism that they propose. With the stubborn continuation of the gendered division of labour, women remain responsible for the bulk of routine domestic chores and childcare, even as their hours in the waged workplace are brought increasingly in line with men's. As two-income families find themselves to be ever more time poor, many of the most affluent seek to outsource reproductive labour to a hyper-exploited class of cleaners, nannies, and care workers, many of them immigrant women integrated within global chains of care. It's clear then that the home and the household, and many of the or underpaid activities associated with them, demand to be included in any meaningful attempt to characterise contemporary labour. Work, even in the limited sense of formal waged jobs, can't really be understood without them. This is important not just in terms of appreciating the nuances of what technological change might mean for the labour market, but also in terms of articulating a proactive politics in the face of imminent disruptive changes, a politics that does not transform the perceived scarcity of waged labour into an uncritical demand for waged work. Thank you very much. I'm going to end there.
I don't know how many of you have seen installations over these days where you could pick between laziness and work, and you were required to fill them out with the sentence. We got a few of them. And there's one that I find particularly interesting. Also consider what Helen just said, is that in laziness, I create what will be made in work. In the emptiness of not doing, I recharge my batteries to do. Is the person who wrote this here? There she is, or there he is. In laziness, I create what will be done in work. In the emptiness of not doing, I recharge my batteries to do. We need emptiness in order to have something full. And we have lost this along the way, this idea that we always have to do something, always have to feel things, always know, always say something. And we are scared of emptiness. What's your name? Alessia. Where do we recharge our batteries? In care. And somehow care is considered a second-level activity, as if there was a real, actual economy, the one that is important and which is carried out outside of our homes, and then there is a dimension, the care of others, of our private life and family life, which is considered a second-level dimension, less important one. And over centuries, the men have taken care of the public part of the high-level economy, whereas women of low-level economy. If we move back to words, think of the word marriage, which includes, in some languages, the word mother, whereas father is included in its Latin version in patrimony. So it's hard to keep this steady bond, this steady line of difference. What is good, something interesting we can take from this, is that there's space, there's room for new models. If we think of today's model of economy, it goes back to the model of hunting, of war. We sort of think that there's always someone winning and someone losing, but there's another very important model for the humankind, and that's the model of care. Humankind is among the most fragile species on the earth. Newborn babies are probably the babies that need most care among all animals. If we didn't have someone who takes care of us, we couldn't survive as a species. So perhaps there is space and room now that robots start having a whole set of new functions that we're organizing our activities. There may be space and room for a new model of economy, of society, that includes care not as a second level activity, but rather as a model of survival for humankind. As for people and what we really are and what we really look for and how we get together in moments of hardship, there's a wonderful film documentary by Apostolos Karakasis, right? Who's an excellent Greek independent filmmaker who has filmed plenty of documentaries. He's working for the public television in Greece and mainly devotes his work to ordinary people. And perhaps you'll tell us more about that, what ordinary people means. He has received plenty of prizes. He's an assistant at the School of Cinema of Aristoteles University in Salonico and has written a very interesting manual for young directors. And I looked for further information, but all the results on Google were in Greek. So I must confess, I cannot say much more, but perhaps you can?
Hello. I'm very happy to have sound and to be here in Pergine with you. I was asked to contribute with my experience of the last film I have made. The organizers obviously thought that somehow this experience of making this film that will be screened tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning might be useful to inform the manual on work and happiness. I don't know if you will, but let's see. Let's move to number 2, Luca. I would like to use this idea of your yellow and black cards to ask you this question that is relevant to this film, which is that would you consider carrying on doing the job that you're doing if you were going to earn only 10 euros a day? I won't give you 3 minutes for that. I think 20 seconds is more than enough. If you would consider to keep on working despite the fact that you would only make 10 euros a day, if you would think about it, you can show the yellow side of the card that says lavoro. Okay, I hope your bosses are not here to see that you're willing to work for 10 euros. But yeah, okay, I see. And the ones that would not consider, I guess, is all the rest, right? Yeah. Okay, so this funny question arises from the situation that the heroes of this film were found themselves into 5 years ago. Now, tre, per favore. These are the heroes of this film. They are the workers of a factory that produced these building materials you see in the background. In the town of Thessaloniki in Greece. It's a factory in my neighborhood that followed the fate of several factories in Greece. Actually, 1 out of 4 factories have closed down during the crisis, the recent crisis, and this factory was one of those factories. But this case was somehow different because this particular group of people, through coincidence or whatever, and through their workers' union and their visionary leader of this union, that guy with the red cap who is seated in the center, thought that they could use this misfortune as an opportunity to reclaim their jobs and to maybe materialize a dream of working in a different environment of direct democracy and creativity. The suggestion that there are workers' union, well, I don't know if he would hate to hear the word leader, but anyway, leader, was to occupy and self-manage the factory. So, because this was very something that excited a lot of the political groups of the left in Greece and across the world, they embraced this venture, and they found some way to find some funding so that they would secure the 10 euros a day. So they could occupy and start self-managing the factory and make 10 euros a day, and then they would see what they would do. The workers were 45 in that factory, and the ones in the picture are just a little bit less than 20. So 20 of them sort of raised the yellow card and went on to do it. So to get an idea before I tell you more of my experience, I would like to play back the trailer of the film, which is slide number 4, please.
Είμαι άνεργος. Δεν έχω μία. Και εσύ μου λες θα πάω να βρω 750 ευρώ. Κατάληψη είναι κάτι συγκεκριμένο.
Αν τα έκαναν αυτά σε άλλη χώρα, θα ήταν μέσα έτσι. Όχι επειδή εγώ θα τους έκανα κάτι, η πολιτεία.
Εμείς αυτό θέλουμε, να προχωρήσει μια διαδικασία για να μπούμε σε μια νόμιμη διαδικασία και να δουλέψουμε κανονικά. Νόμιμα και όμορφα.
Είχατε ξανακούσει τη λέξη αυτοδιαχείριση ποτέ?
Όχι. 4, 6, 8. Κοίταξε, διαφορά. Το βιομηχανικό προϊόν είναι ένα. Δεν μπορεί μια μέρα να είναι πράσινο, τα κίτρινο, τα κόκκινο. Ένα δεν είναι.
Ακόμα έχεις ελπίδες.
Τώρα φεύγουμε. Όχι, δεν πρέπει μαρακίες. Εδώ είστε και πληρώνετε 90 ευρώ.
This factory is important not just to Greece, it's known in resistance movements around the world.
Είναι αυτό που ζητάμε 2,5 χρόνια τώρα. Και ήρθε η στιγμή να αποφασίσουν. Είναι μια σχέση σχεδόν έρωτος του να συμμετέχει σε μια τέτοια διαδικασία.
Όσο πιέζεις, όσο κάνεις και όσο είσαι εδώ, θα κερδίσεις πολλά.
Κέρδισες τίποτα?
Φυσικά έχω κερδίσει. Πάρα πολλά.
Φεύγοντας από εκεί τι κάνω. Αυτό σκέφτομαι καθημερινά.
Και viva el control obrero. Η φιλοσοφία είναι η ίδια. Πώς θα πάρουμε τα μέσα παραγωγής.
Sí. Y algún día ocuparemos el mundo.
Και κάποια στιγμή θα κατακτήσουμε και τον κόσμο.
Right. So, well, thank you. Actually, I don't know if my presence here is what we call a teaser or a spoiler, because the experience was. I tried hard to make a good film out of my experience that you could watch, but anyway, I'll go on. We were left at the 10 euros, right? 10 euros a day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month. It's about 250 euros per month. And if you start calculating that to get into the factory you have to take transport or your car and pay petrol, you end up with about 150 euros a month as an income. So obviously, the money was not their motivation. What was their motivation? Could it be maybe the pursuit of happiness, as you know, we are talking about work and happiness? There is one scene in that Yeah.
We could say you wanted to be interrupted.
Yeah, I asked for interactions, didn't I?
I think they want to know they have an option.
You mean hope?
Yeah. Option, hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I'll add this to the list. Let's move to number 5. We ask anybody who has read about dramaturgy or any manual on script writing, and know that when we talk about the characters, we say that characters have wants and needs. Wants are the things that are kind of more direct and superficial, like a baby crying wants his or her mother to buy them a toy. So this is the want, but the need is something deeper. The baby or the small kid in that case wants reassurance, affection, this feeling that it's being loved. So in the case of this story, and of course, in every film or novel or play or whatever narrative, what Mick Jagger said is very useful tool, that you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you may find you get what you need. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. The wants, obviously, is that they want to hold on to their job and they want to keep on working and keep on getting paid. But the needs is that they need to get over their state of shock, their state of depression that came with unemployment, to have hope for a future which is not as bleak, and to reclaim happiness. So in a point of the film that was in the trailer, we have this confrontation. The man that is the bald guy there is talking to Mitsos. Mitsos is that guy, well, basically he's this one. So he's telling him, look, we've been here trapped for 2.5 years and we didn't get any of our wants. We didn't get more money. What have you been doing here? What have you gained? And it's a part of the film which is very nice. The material was very nice. Maybe I ruined it in the editing, but Mitsos cannot find the words to say what he has gained. Maybe he's, I don't know, embarrassed as a man or something, but I try to make a list of what he has made. So if we go to number 9, one of the things he has gained is that he gained an everyday routine, a schedule, a framework for his daily life. Instead of sitting at home and just watching television or doing all the inactive routine of an industrial worker who has been left unemployed, this gave him some structure. And then another thing is the social interaction. It's not only the social interaction he had with the other workers, but because this factory became quite famous, as a matter of fact, and there were many, many, many visitors, people from movements from all around the world were visiting the factory. They were offering help, support. Mitsos in particular is one of the people that has probably reached the top number of Facebook friends you can have through this. So yeah, he met a lot of people. He had a lot of social interaction, and then he had a lot of number 11, admiration from all these people that were coming, and they were really admiring what they were doing. And this gave him, number 12, a sense of purpose, because he felt that he is contributing to social change. And the sense of number 13, which is recognition. Journalists, TV crews from all over the world came almost every day. The number of interviews that these simple people had to give rose their self-esteem. And let's go to the next one. What is it? The feeling of self-respect. That's very similar. And the next one is trips around the world. This is scandalous somehow, because this network of social movements has arranged so many trips, and these people that have almost never left the country found themselves traveling from Amsterdam to Berlin to Rome to everywhere. And of course this brings an enjoyment in their life. And last but not least, at the end of the day, they managed to get a raise, and now they make 15 euros a day, which is 400 euros a month. And this money is not taxed. And let me tell you that the unemployment benefit in Greece is less than that, and it only lasts for 1 year. So after this presentation, I would like you to look at your cards and say, did Mitsos do a good choice to keep on waving the yellow side of the paper and working? Would you agree with Mitsos' choice? Raise your yellow. So I think more people are now approving of this choice of working for 10 euros. Well, and there's one more thing. One more reason that we can see in the next slide that has to do with the feeling of self-determination at work, because when they had their boss, which is actually one of the 3 characters of the film, and she was asking for them to, okay, let's lower your wages so that we make an effort to keep this company alive, they didn't accept this offer, because they felt somehow estranged from their work. They didn't feel that, that it was something that they could determine themselves. Somebody was telling them what to do, but now they could sit all together and decide who was going to do when, what, and how. And this has to do, of course, with the feeling of creativity and freedom at the workplace. So, at this point, I would like to play back another clip, which is a part of the interview of the guy who initiated this, Makis.
Την αγαπούσα τη δουλειά. Την αγαπούσα γιατί μέσα από εκεί έβγαζα πράγματα. Έκυψε εκείνο το καμαράκι. Ο κοντρολάρης στις 2 μηχανές, μέσα από ένα κομπιούτερ έβαζε τις συνταγές. Έκανα διορθώσεις που νόμιζα εγώ ότι είναι σωστό, ας πούμε. Τα άφηνα να ακούσω τι γινόταν, χωρίς να πω τίποτα. Εντάξει. Σκοπός είναι ο άνθρωπος να δημιουργεί και όχι να δουλεύει απλά. Λέμε από μέσα τη δουλειά του να είναι καλλιτέχνης. Δεν θέλουμε την προηγούμενη κατάσταση που είχαμε. Μια σκλαβιά, έστω μέσα σε ένα ολόκληρο κλουβί, δεν το θέλουμε αυτό πίσω πλέον. Θέλουμε την απόλυτη ελευθεριά μας. Θέλουμε να απελευθερωθούμε και να δημιουργήσουμε μόνοι μας.
Right. When I was at the other side of the camera and I was listening to him that a person is not, he says, the purpose of man is to create, not just work, to be an artist. I was thinking, okay, so filmmaker, I'm a filmmaker. Film is the 7th art, as they say, so as a documentary filmmaker, I guess I'm an artist. What does he think that, my life is? Like I'm, just generating things and being fulfilled constantly and happy? Well, the truth is I have to agree with that quote about emptiness providing and some kind of creative laziness providing the environment that I could, in this process, think, oh, that would be a good idea to make a film about this project, about these people. And I enjoyed this thought. Maybe I talked about it with my wife at that moment. Maybe I even enjoyed a glass of wine with it. And I think that was probably the end of my happiness during these 3 years of very, very hard work. I haven't achieved this as a person. I don't enjoy the process at all. It's very painful. And it's for me, it's not at all pleasant. What is pleasant is that I have finished the film and now I'm in places like Pergine, for instance, and we'll go and have a lovely dinner afterwards. And all this is, you know, meeting nice people like you. This is all very, very pleasant, but the process, I don't know, I haven't come to terms. It's a personal problem because some other people really enjoy shooting. But in this film, to give you an idea, I had to, well, I was producing for the first year the film, then I found another producer. I was directing, I was doing the camera work, occasionally sound recording, but I did all sorts of odd technical jobs, little things like, you know, subtitles or any kind of technical jobs. I shot about 160 days. So that means that I went to the factory about 200 times because, you know, I didn't shoot every time. And I was going at 7 o'clock in the morning and staying until 3 o'clock, hanging out with these macho guys, which where we became very close, but it was not like my normal company of friends. They were not movie goers or art lovers or anything like that. They were just normal people. So I shot about 300 hours of material that then I had to watch and watch and watch again, and most of it was assemblies, people discussing in assemblies, and this can be exhausting. And then I had to edit it for a year and a half and make it just a film which is 1 hour and a half long. So I had to kill a lot of darlings, as they say. And editing was a hard labor, all this, finding money, writing treatments, rewriting treatments in all sorts of languages, in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And that was very tough. And meetings, traveling to meet possible funding, people who would give funding. But all these problems, or this, you know, hard work was nothing compared to the big agony, which was the 99% of the trouble of making this film, which is that in order to make a good documentary film, you have to have good access to the people, to enter their lives. And I entered the lives of these people that occupied the factory, and then some of the people didn't want to take part in the venture anymore. So there was a conflict between them, and I wanted to have both points of view. So I wanted both of these sides to trust me to tell their story. And then I met the ex-owner of the factory, and I thought that her perspective was very valuable to me as well, and I wanted her point of view as well. So I wanted three people who were enemies against each other, to give me their trust, and they had the final say, because we had made an agreement at the beginning that, you know, in every film, people who take part have to sign a release form, that they agree that the film is released. And I told them, look, we'll finish the film, you will see it, and then you will give me the release form. So that means that I started thinking that nobody would approve this film, because it shows the side of the enemy as well, and I would end up spending 3 years all in vain. I would not have a film in the end. Funnily enough, all of them thought that the film was wonderful. They kept on, you know, fighting against each other in court, but they felt that the representation of their story was fair. So I got, well, let's see what I'm finishing now. Let's see what maybe the next slide, Luca, please. Okay, all right, we said that. Next one. Oh, and I got the same things as Michos in the end. I got about 10 euros a day, or maybe less. I got trips around the world, a feeling of self-respect and recognition, thanks to you people, a sense of purpose and social interaction. And next, maybe, and this delusion of making a contribution to culture, of representing your times somehow, reflecting on your times, with sense of purpose, I guess, being a documentary filmmaker. So I don't know if this informs a lot of the work on happiness, but I think I have reached my end. Maybe I have one more slide to go.
Delusion, you mean?
Delusion, I mean that,
Is it the delusion or the illusion? No.
Well, we have real English speakers here. What is it? Is it delusion or illusion?
Delusion
I think.
In Italian, delusion is like I am not happy about it. Did you mean that?
No, this is disillusionment, I think. Yeah? No, delusion is you're being deluded. You're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself that you're doing something important. Yeah. All right, so I'll be very happy if I see some of you tomorrow at the screening at 11. And thanks a lot for your time.
E qui ci vuole l'intervento di un altro.
So now I need to hear someone else who wrote recently. I confronted myself with this reflection. What I gained by working would be I gained also without working, is the person who wrote this in the room. There she is. That it's interesting because indeed the topic is, what do I gain by working? Is it just 10 euros per day or else? What did you answer yourself? It's a question, it's not an answer. There's more. The list that Apostolos showed us is very interesting. Having a role, having a purpose, an identity. That's one of the topics I deal with when talking about unemployed women. In Italy is second ranking in the number of unemployed women in Europe at 47%. In a ranking of 135 countries, Italy, for economic participation of women, ranks at, do you know what? Raise your hand if you think we are in the top 30, top 50, sorry, top 80, top 100. We're still the 8th world power, aren't we? We are a Western country. Women have a driver's license, but we are 117th. By economic participation of women. The theme is that working equals citizenship. It's not just a matter of income, but of participation, being there, having an identity, having a social network, having constant confirmation of what we are and who we are. You can still choose not to work and have your identity, but that must be a choice, your choice. We must think that we have a choice because choice is important, because choice leads to freedom and maybe happiness as well. But to present our third guest, I've chosen another sentence written by some of you, very nice, I'll read it, that says, I would like to answer this question, but I'm too lazy and happy to be too lazy to do it. Who said it? You wrote it in English. I'll read it in English. Who wrote it? I think it's a man. I bet my 10 euro that I gained yesterday. So now I would like to present Santiago, who's a Sevilla-born architect and urban planner. Doesn't take anything for granted. He founded Resetas Urbanas, lead partner of a network of collective and sustainable architecture and of strategies of urban occupation. And there's a sentence that he said and that I found on the web, and he doesn't know what I'm going to read.
Che dice così? La gente dice.
And it says, people say that my architecture is ugly. They say that it's interesting but ugly. But I say, who doesn't have an ugly friend? We all have an ugly friend. Architecture today is obsessed with this idea of beautiful buildings and nice projects. That's bullshit. And I say it in English because we cannot say swear words. Architecture should be cheap, functional, and it should be an excuse to bring people together. And that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Time not for work or to be happy, I don't know. Now I know it's Friday night in Italy. In 3 hours is my birthday. My girlfriend said yesterday that she's pregnant. So I'm happy, of course. So now I'll try to involve work and jobs and happiness. Okay, more serious. I can't, but I will try. But I want to, sorry, but I want to express a very simple and stupid experience. At the first, it's my life, and later in 5 minutes, we have more time, change to the collective. You spoke about creative to feel freedom. So a human, like you, I suppose, is in a stone. For me, to be happy, to have the happiness, is when you are free to decide yellow or black or pink or another color. The life is full of colors. Another question is when you have an idea to change a thing, not only to decide, to propose. For me, the third, to be human, is to work in collective. It's different for me. So when we make projects, ugly or not ugly, is when the people can decide, invent, and to work together. For me, that's the third question, the third term, that people are human. Later, you decide. In my opinion, I want to say that during 18 years, I wanted to be military, you know. And my father, and my brothers, and my uncle, and my grandfather are all militaries. But my father say, no, you can't be military, because when I say you go there, you change, and you decide to go another place. Yes, so he said to me, you must be architect. I say, architect is boring. It's very cool, very stupid, really. So for me, when I started to be realized, to try to be happy, it was when I started to study in the stupid academy. I know that many of you are inside the academy, many different universities. Sorry, who of you are in the academy? Like teacher, student? No, I can't believe. More. Only? So good. We have a possibility to change the world. No, but the second question is why Europe want to pay us to be happy? So why now in the objectives of Europe against to US, China, and other countries want to pay to be happy, to talk about happiness? No, I don't know if you know. But my real question is, all of you, who of you spend one Monday morning, Wednesday morning in a official office of urbanism, culture, waiting for a politician or a technician to propose a project? Who of you? Only one? The second question, I know the answer, sorry, I am very stupid. So who of you, you are working in culture, I suppose, many of you, talking about citizens, talking about happiness, talking about works and jobs. Who of you know about the law, participation law in Italy? Or, if you want, the culture law? Who of you? You are the first word. You are the first level of culture. You are here because it's a seminar, international seminar about culture, happiness, work. And at the end, for me it's a pity that at the end, sorry, I'm funny sometimes, but not now, because in Barcelona now it's happening a very bad situation, but it's okay. But the only way I will change my way of express, okay? I want to say that when I tried to be happy, like younger, for me it was very important to understand the way to connect with the institution, with the academy, with my city, with my government. If not, it's stupid. If not, with the culture, we make beautiful things, but the economic system, the political system, they are growing and growing. And we are looking for money from Europe, looking for money from the city, making good things, interesting and intelligent. But at the end, in my opinion, I don't feel happy if not we can change that way. It's like a competition. I hate the competition. I say during the dinner and the lunch that we are waiting when Europe or your city propose money for make a cultural project, a social project, and then we go running to make a proposal. But at the end, I think that it's better to look what's happening around you, and then you propose to the government. So, my friend, I don't know your name, but please run. When they say that in Italy, when you make that, it's go on. Nice. So, go on again. It's the way 22 years ago when I tried to feel happy because I wanted to be military, and I tried to make guerrilla architect to make more activists to go against to my city, my government, to occupy the street, buildings, trees, and more empty lots and empty sites, making culture, trying to connect. I don't know. It's a very complicated question. How you, all of you, how you connect with your institutions, your public, with your government. You have the right
Santiago,
to vote.
this is a seminar about happiness.
Yes.
We can't speak about this.
No, yes, I can change that because all of them appear very funny and very happy. Not me now. And I will be father, not you. So I'm happy, of course. But to be happy, isn't easy. So really, in my opinion. So during years, please, one more, we make action to try to understand, because if you at the end, you are happy because you are expecting that when the institution, the government, decide to offer you helps, money, to make your culture, your studios, it's nice. Each one could be happy as you want. In my experience, in the experience of many different people, We must involve, really, to know the law, the regulations. Many times to attack them, not to wait, not to say, we want to make a social project because it's beautiful for the neighbors. Fuck you. So, fuck you. So, it's good not because it's good for the neighbors. It's good because you are using the law, European, Italian, or Spanish law, about participation, about equality, about for a work, a job. So, for me, the discussion is not to be very easy to be happy, in my opinion. Sometimes we broken roads, ways. It was an action to say, I don't feel in you, I don't trust in you. Come on. I understand that to be alone it was stupid. To be happy alone is stupid. 18 years ago, we started to work together, building together with different people, females. Come on. Very young people, because we are talking about workers, the right to have a good job, to pay the job. I understand, but we prefer many times to be outside the professional works. Because that is happiness. Because you aren't waiting for a money. You are building yourself as you want. Come on. In Malaga, come on. Then appear technology. Many different companies offer, you can see, it's about a picture, but it's, you can't have a beer with that monsters. You can't have a beer. I prefer, come on, the human. So you can change the machine for people that they decide. Another question, who of you think that a children can work building himself or herself the classrooms of the house? It's legal, permit a boy, a girl to work building? It's legal, legal, illegal. So the people having any opinion, only 6%, it's okay. Come on, we are making projects involving different person, children's, all person, people with any view, different situations. Please, more, please. Building a stupid building, but at the end we are trying to change the law in Sevilla, trying to make if the state, if your government not make a competition to make a school of jazz or circus of mental illness, you must to invent, not me, the people decide. It's my government, it's democratic, it's stupid or not, but we must to propose. So I only want to say that for me, in my opinion, to take the happiness is when you say your democratic system that it's impossible that then can offer all, because many different groups, many different people never have the resolution of the problems. So if you need, perhaps in London, in Bologna or in Bogota, you can check if the government can give you all you need. Here, it was the same. Many different persons decide to build, come on please, a school of circus. We have a law in Spain about circus. We made a circus. At the end, the police and all the government decide to stop without any money, so €0 for that project. All the people working together to be happy. For me, I remember it was the most beautiful period in my life. So 100 persons working in a public ground. We have the right to use the public properties. We have the rights. But at the end, because the police start to arrive day by day, but If you go to the urban planning office, who decide how you go? You can go very elegant or clean, I don't know. But at the end, we are trying to move all that strategy about how to connect. The question is how you, day by day, how you connect with the administration, how you, waiting for a competition, paying for the academy. So it's a question that you, later or now, in your mind, you will think about. So the question is if the most intelligent person, the first world, the academic world, we never have a contact, a real contact to change the things. Not only making a party or making an act outside in the street. No, day by day going to the public buildings to demand, to talk about the question. In that way, come on, many different people decided to go like a play. Can you go to a public office, appear like a clown? If you want to pay a license, you want to pay a license for a project, perhaps you can go like a clown or with music. Do you know it's permit the music in a public office or not? It's possible? What do you think? No? No? Why not? Where appear that you can go with music to pay your license? Hello, my man, hi. Why not? Because you think that the relation with the institution must be...
You can't breastfeed in a public office, you know that?
You can go as you want. The people that don't want to, don't how to write, they have the right to express, like with a drawing. So, if you read, please, the law about how to connect that administration law that permit other people with another language, with no education, they have the right to communicate. You can appear with music, you can appear. Come on, please. It is saying, it's possible that the kids in the public buildings, it's a good writer, come on. So it's possible that kids, we started 10 years ago working with kids in the public schools, come on, trying to make a safety control about damage. But don't worry, at the end, in Spain, it's very strange, because now in Germany they are publishing that, come on, that picture, you can see their happiness is in the city. It's many different mothers, Alice in the middle, amazing, me too, and many different people that at the end we demanded to build ourselves a public building. Not a temporary building, not a folly. No, it's a real building, come on, where here is a very simple, stupid text that appear in the A that fathers, mothers, and students from the school will build now with the European code of construction. So we are involving now many different people, and a very important architect say, but it's illegal to work with children. It's illegal to work with people with INVU. It's illegal to work with people that are in the prison. It's illegal to work with people that have mental problems. And now it's a party. Now we are working, come on, together in public buildings. I say that Fabio say it's in Italy it's very difficult because they demand engineers, fuck all of them, sorry. So the institution, the law, the European fucker law is the same in Italy, in France, in Spain. But the problem is that you never spend, when you go to the bathroom, please spend 10 minutes reading law. Try. I propose that invent a law. It's legal to make a paella in the street. You say, no, it's illegal. It's illegal to make love in the street. It must be illegal. No, but please look for the law that say it's illegal. Yes, it's illegal to climb a tree to sleep. You don't know. So please, spend in your life only 10 minutes to look for as you want. It's illegal to sit in that position. Yes, it's illegal in Barcelona. To sit in a public bench, it's illegal. They can demand you, the police, 300 euros to sit in that position. Yes, it appears stupid. It's stupid. So, come on. I want to finish now. But at the end, for me, the happiness is each project is when you introduce, when you can offer to the institutions that mothers, that always in all the social question, the women is the most important element. In Latin America, I went 64 times there around all Latin America, and the women at the end is the person who work all time. The men disappear, I don't know where, but it's real. They are talking about the rights of the woman. But it's, I know we must to fight about it, but it's very clear that they are always working. Come on. But at the end, and the last thing, we are introducing in the formal protocols many different people that children can't work in a building. They can. They can. The law is only for professionals. If your kids decide, Mom, I want to climb that mountain with you and you with father, and you say, oh, it's okay, come on. Mom, I want to take a skate. And you say, well, a skate, or a bike. And at the end, that boy or girl died, it's your responsibility. If the boys, they say, Mom, Dad, I want to build my own classroom. And you say, it's okay. It's legal. It's possible. I spend many times with lawyers fucking me and say, no, you are crazy. The law is only for professionals. So we are talking about happiness outside the official shops.
Grazie.
Okay.
Adesso avete capito il collegamento.
So you understood the connection. I don't care. I don't give a single thing about that. We quoted before. That's Santiago talking to us about the sense of possibility. That's something that only humans have, the ability to see things as they are. Imagine how they could be and work for them to be in that way. Against the sense of possibility, we have the spirit of adaptation, which over the past 30, 40 years has been way more successful. So it's beautiful that today we talk about possibilities. The easy task to speak last after this sort of weirdos is for Nina Power, who does plenty of things, but among them, she's a researcher on unexpected points of meeting points on art, philosophy, cinema, feminism, and politics. She's written a book, which in Italian was translated as La donna ha una dimensione, from objectified women to commodified women. We finish off with women, feminism, which is absolutely correct and necessary, and I'm going to read the introduction to her book. Where are interesting women? Considering the typical portrait of femininity, the culmination for today's women would be owning interesting purses, a vibrator, a flat, and a man, certainly in this order. Certainly, no one's forced to believe TV shows, magazines, and ads, and plenty of people don't. But how do we get to this point? Desires carried over by the liberation movements of the 20th century have been carried out in self-complacent vices and waltzes, extreme waltzes, that women's emancipation can coincide with capitalism and consumerism is quite sad, representing our era, sort of.
Okay, thank you for that. It's quite difficult to finish now. It's also very past my bedtime, in fact. So I will try to stay awake and give some kind of conclusion or non-in-conclusion to the events. And I'm very happy to be here, actually. And the talks were very interesting in these different ways. And I'm sorry for speaking in English. I guess what I wanted to finish talking about was coming back to the questions in their, I guess, sort of general or more philosophical sense when we think about questions of happiness, of work, and actually what we mean when we talk about work, and I think, and laziness too. So I think it's very important to think about wage labor, the fact that most people have to sell their time in order to stay alive, in order to get a wage, to pay rent, to eat, is a very singular, very specific mode of human activity. It is a form of exploitation, to be very Marxist, Orthodox about it. It is not what human activity in some history of human life has been like. For the longest periods of time, people were able to sustain their existence without needing to sell their labor power. And the fact that land and resources have been stolen from the vast majority of people is the reason why people have to sell their labor power, because we cannot sustain ourselves. So I think we have to understand that work under capitalism, that wage labor, is historically very, very late. It hasn't lasted for a very long time, if you like. And this, I think, gives us the possibility of thinking that there is something else, that there is another way of conceiving human activity which does not need to be reduced to this kind of labor, which is labor to generate a profit for somebody else. Although, actually to think about the film, I mean, this is a very interesting question. I mean, within the system as it exists, what chances are there for questions of self-management, for all of these kind of positive affects and feelings of autonomy and self-governance and recognition within the system? So it's not so straightforward. And of course, even within these kind of exploitative jobs, there are moments of solidarity, of happiness, of sociability. You might enjoy working with your colleagues. Some of them maybe I sometimes do not. I think this is common experience as well. But I suppose from a kind of philosophical point of view, when we talk about what it means to act and to even exist in a way, I think when we pose the question of work and its opposite, if you ask somebody what's the opposite of work, they might say doing nothing, or laziness, I think, is maybe the way this is posed here. And I think it's a much bigger question than that. And I would like to suggest that the opposite of wage labor is not laziness, but rather the expansion and the possibility of our creative faculties, and in fact our capacity to behave socially, to behave in an interesting way as an individual, and to think about the relationship between the social and the collective and the individual. And I think this is something that Marx argues. And Marxism is often reduced to this kind of grey image of, labor, when we think of actually existing socialism. But actually, Marx has a much deeper philosophical and almost ancient Greek conception of happiness, as it is linked to the question of human activity. And we can think back to ancient Greek idea of eudaimonia, which is a much broader term than how we would understand happiness in perhaps, again, this very narrow capitalist sense in which we also have a horrible responsibility to be happy. And in fact, this is an extremely oppressive feeling, this idea that one must, out of some moral duty or even a duty to the economy, that somehow we must make the economy happy, and that actually the happiness, so-called, when we anthropomorphize the economy, we actually kind of subsume our own kind of question of our own happiness as a collective or as individuals. And I think we do not yet know what it means to be an individual. And this is very important because we live in an era in which the individual is understood to be the absolute paramount ideological category, and we're all supposed to be working on ourselves all the time. Whereas the Greek conception of eudaimonia is much, much broader. It's an understanding of an idea of human flourishing, what it would mean to actually develop one's own capacities and not be channeled into some very, very narrow route. I think all of the things that we could all be in terms of our creative, our artistic, our social, our scientific joy and delight, we don't get to do them, mainly, because our time and our lives are kind of stolen from us in this way. And even we can think about when Freud talks about actually the accomplishment of achieving a kind of everyday, low-level unhappiness. And actually, I think this is very funny when Freud says this, but I actually think it's very helpful. Against this happiness industry, these apps, this biometric, you must eat 15 pieces of fruit a day, you must, constantly look for work, you must network, you must be blah, 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 blah. Actually to achieve a kind of low-level everyday unhappiness is at least a success and maybe a form of resistance, in fact, against this very narrow image of happiness. So I think philosophy and psychoanalysis can actually help us to think in bigger terms about alternatives to these sort of very commodified ways of thinking about happiness, about work, and about laziness. And actually, there's a very interesting quote from Oscar Wilde, which relates to the earlier quote from the audience, where he says, "To do nothing is the most difficult thing in the world, the most difficult and the most intellectual." And I think this is very interesting, that actually when we're asked what we might do if we had free time, and in fact my question, to which I don't demand an answer from the audience, was going to be, if you had enough time and enough money, so you didn't need to worry about either of those things, what would you do? What would you choose to do? And I don't think we should demand an answer, but I think people should discuss it, think about it. It's an interesting question to think about. I often pose this question about, if you won the lottery scratch card and you had £10,000 a year or £20,000 a year and you didn't have to do wage labor, what would you actually choose to do? I think at the moment I would like to take photographs of the sky. This is my current desire. Because this is what I want to do, right? But it's difficult. I have to write, exams, scripts, and mark, and whatever else. So, okay, there are, of course, some very difficult questions I just want to raise. It's very nice to speculate, think about free time. Of course, there are realities, and we live in this money system. Of course, because we cannot feed ourselves, we depend upon all of these kind of, global structures. And I suppose it's thinking about, like in the film, what would we be prepared to do, even when we weren't being paid or we weren't being paid enough. But there is also a kind of question about what would we do kind of without money. Is it possible to think of a world of exchange and social behavior that didn't depend upon money? And I think a lot of the time people react quite badly to this question, on the first place saying, well, that's not how it is, don't be so utopian, don't be so idealist. Or they might say, well, do you want everyone to go back to living in fields, this kind of primitivist image, what are we actually going to do with all these factories, all of these kind of things that exist in the world. And I think in the first place we might need to take some kind of material stock, to actually think, well, what is there? What is there in the world that people need? And the question of need and want is very important, exactly. What is there? What exists? How can we redistribute these things such that there is a much fairer, distribution of these things? And we know, for example, there is enough food in the world to feed everybody. It's simply profit-driven reasons why it's not distributed fairly. And actually, speaking of happiness, we know from research by epidemiologists looking at rates of drug abuse and depression that these things, negative social factors, if you like, are much higher in unequal countries. So there's a very interesting social dimension to this question of happiness and equality. And I want to say that equality does not mean that everybody, in the Marxist sense, that everybody has the same or does the same. If you think about Marx's, one of his most famous statements, from each according to his or her ability, to each according to his or her need, this is precisely a recognition of difference and differential capacity. It is not to say that everybody, regardless of their status or age, should be doing the same thing or should end up with the same results. I think this is a mischaracterization of what equality is, and also of what happiness is. And I think Marx is deeply committed to happiness in all of his thinking about what human activity is and the very narrow ways it has been funneled into these very exploitative and alienating forms of labor. But even within those forms of labor, we can find joy. There are resources for thinking about a different social arrangement. And I think we have to overcome a certain kind of cynicism, perhaps, or a kind of default cynicism, which is also part of the ideology of our day. It's the one that we are actually told to think in, and we kind of internalize it and we accept it. And I think maybe just to finish, one of the main ways of doing this is breaking with a kind of moralism of work and a moralism of the individual that we are supposed to internalize. I think in Britain and many other countries, we maybe live to a greater or lesser extent in a secular society, to some ways not. But nevertheless, work has become this religion of a kind, and this is Weber and other people have identified these links. But what this means is that, so for example, if you're unemployed in Britain, you're very likely to be kind of very isolated, to be depressed. The government will try to get you back into work by offering you cognitive behavioral therapy, these very specific forms of treatment which do not really address any major problems you might have, but make you a kind of good worker. And we're surrounded by these moralistic images of the hard-working family. This is the political and media mantra of the people who have any status in our society. And if you think about who can and cannot work, so asylum seekers cannot legally work, for example, they're completely excluded from this image of what it means to be a citizen, to have status, and to have recognition. At the same time, everything is always your fault. And I want to say that this image of being unemployed, which is depressing, which is to lose some sort of social standing, is not the same as an image of leisure that would be a pleasurable collective experience. That would actually mean, when we think about an image of what might come after capitalism, or what is sort of inherent, even though capitalism tries to steal, like a vampire, all of the time and labor, something that is actually an image of free time. So that communism is nothing other than free time, as Marx and others have claimed. It's about the reduction of labor, because once you're not working to make profit for somebody else, then it becomes a pleasurable collective and individual activity. So I want to say that, to be lazy might be enjoyable, to be unemployed might be unpleasurable, but there are other images of free time that are genuinely about the kind of celebration of human capacity and of an image of human collective and individual life, that we are almost forbidden from thinking. They don't want you to think about these things. I'll finish on this paranoid conspiracy note. Anyway, so there you go.
The duty to be happy. The responsibility to be happy. We have to be happy. We must be happy. What can we do to be happy? I would almost say that from all we've said tonight, perhaps the conclusion could be why happiness is the answer. What is the question for happiness to be the answer? She didn't ask you a question, but I don't think you're that tired, so perhaps we could ask Nina's question to all of you. Her question was, if you could live without working, basically, or you didn't have to worry about money, would you be doing what you're doing today, or what would you do every day of your life? Have you ever thought about that?
It makes me unhappy to think about that.
Si possono accendere un po' le luci?
Can we light up the public? Because we can't see you. It's weird. So he says it makes him unhappy. The girl who said before, I've asked myself the question, but I can avoid the answer.
Io continuerei a fare esattamente.
I would keep on doing what I'm doing right now because I love it. I don't earn much out of that, as many people who do what they love. You don't really get rich, but not being rich means you don't have much of an impact today, and that's a shame, which is why I work in business and not in politics. It's because I would like to have an impact. So, quickly think, it's your last task for tonight. What would you do if you could do exactly what you want to do? Take yourself a minute. Take a minute for yourself and think about it.
Chi è pronto può anche cominciare ad.
Whoever's ready can start chatting with their neighbors. Go, hit it. And then some of the neighbors will tell us what their neighbors talked about, because no one ever speaks about themselves.
I think I might also get a dog. I might also get a dog if I had more time. No, I was just like, if I had more time, I'd get a dog. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't a profound.
You actually need time.
It wasn't a profound contribution. I was just being
money.
honest. It would be lovely, right?
Maybe it's not that difficult to get a dog.
No, it's really hard. You have to get other people to look after it. Like, who would, I live in a flat where I'd have to walk it. It's actually really hard to own a dog. You need a lot of time.
Allora, Nina, se potesse prenderebbe un cane.
It's not important.
Qualcuno ha sentito dal vicino qualcosa di altrettanto interessante?
Someone heard something as interesting from their neighbors and want to share it? Not your story. We're interested in other people's businesses.
Niente?
Nothing?
Because it's a very psychoanalytically difficult question to answer that actually no one is really going to want to say in public.
That's why I ask. Ecco perché chiedo di dire quella del vicino.
That's why I'm asking well, what she's saying.
That's true, but still, that's
Nobody makes it easier.
slight social sadism, but it's okay.
Okay. Remember, I work with companies. So.
Yeah.
Normalmente le aziende pagano.
Usually companies pay for this. It's somewhat sadist, as you said. Do you have any questions for our speakers, whom you're never going to see again in your life, perhaps? So this is your one chance. You're full, you're done, you're hungry, you're tired. Shall we wave goodbye? So thank you for your time.
And the interpreter.